Welcome back, guys. It's Jason with your Hopium-free crypto update and Hopium-filled titles. Well, as a reason for today's Hopium-filled title, I have a feeling that the market's going to get a little bit boring over the coming days, possibly weeks, maybe even months. But let's not get too worked up. At the moment, we're looking at Bitcoin is the low in, and when is the best time to be buying cryptocurrencies. So make sure you smash the likes, subscribe, bell notification icon. Today's sponsor, Swyftx. Take this off now. And I've got a little update with Swyftx. 12 days of Christmas coming up for Aussie investors. So check that out in just a second. All right, let's have a look at Bitcoin and trying to spice things up, because honestly, I think the market is definitely going to be getting a little bit boring, and the massive titles of 5x, 20x, 50x altcoins by November 25th obviously have not come true. So the first thing I'm looking at here, if we go back to just a few notes, Bitcoin low is in, best time to buy crypto. Always, I want to define the macro trend. I'm going to look at my weekly swing and my monthly swing, have a quick look at my Wyckoff method, volume, pattern, closing price, and of course my Gann signals as well. So I'm going to just make things really simple and then make it a little more complex, not too complex. It's really nice to have things very simple, especially when you're starting out. I get that comment quite a lot from people that think sometimes there's a few words and technicalities that are a little bit hard to follow. So let's start with a monthly chart of Bitcoin, and we're just looking at a line chart. And so the two things I want to point our attention to are the lows that have come in here. So if there's nothing else you know how to do, just look at the blue line, and we've got the low point. That price is right up here. That's at around 35,000, and the next low point is at 43,800, so 44,000. So these are some of the major pivot points. So if I go back to my checklist, I wanted to find the macro trend. So I need to do this first in order to understand is the low in, and then figure out, should I be buying cryptocurrencies now or should I be waiting? So these lows are in. Let's have a look at the monthly swing, which is the yellow line. And for that, I want to throw it back onto my bars. So this is what we can see now. This is a monthly chart. So each one of these bars is 1 month. And if you prefer candles, because that's the default setting when you get a charting software, find a link to TradingView in the description down below. This is what comes up first. So I learned to use bars when I started trading, and the majority of people look at candles. So this is what we're seeing here. These are the monthly swings when it comes to the highs and the lows. And so you can see that these bars are breaking down the previous bars. So I'm not going to spend too much time on this because it's pretty self-explanatory. To create your swings, it does take some practice. This is Gann swings. It's not an indicator. It's not a tool. It's actually something you have to draw onto the chart. And so that's why I like to use a line chart, because it's not exactly the same, but it does help a new investor. And so my major points on a monthly chart now are the low here at 28,900. So I'll use interchangeably the 28,000 or the 29,000 as my turning point for a macro trend to disintegrate, or if we hold up at that level and we start to make higher lows again, then that's a good sign. So you can see so far we've seen higher lows and another high low put in, but this trend at the moment is just starting to get a little bit slower. So these moves were quite quick, and now we've started to run out of a bit of steam. So if we did break down from this level, then we would look to our next support level of the previous all-time high of around 20 grand, and then the levels further down at 14 and approximately 10 to 12 grand. A long way off at this point. There's no guarantees that we are at an exact low, but it is looking like a reasonable low at this point. But we have to also understand where we can be wrong, because it can definitely be wrong. We just need to look at the probabilities of both sides here. So this is the monthly. We throw it onto a weekly chart, and that gives us a little bit more information here. The yellow line is still the monthly, but then we look towards this low that came in September, and that was at 39,600. So that'll be one of the first warning signs. If we break down from that 39, which we're not too far from now at 50 grand, down to 39, and we started to make lower highs and lower lows, then we could probably say, well, we're going to be down here for some time. So from this point down underneath, and then we start to base out in this zone here, or maybe fall, or maybe go higher. We've talked about this plenty of times, so I'm not going to spend too much time on that, especially on yesterday's video as well, if you check that out. What we're going to look for is the low end. And another sign that I look at are daily bars which have very similar patterns to previous daily bars on crashes, and then look at how much time and what the pattern looks like after those bars. Before we get to that, I just wanted to mention the Swyftx 12 Days of Christmas. So check it out. I'll leave a link to Swyftx in the description down below if you want to sign up for Swyftx and get your $10 of free Bitcoin, and then go ahead into their draw for their 12 Days of Christmas. There's a few things you need to do there, so make sure you check that out. They're giving away a Tesla at the end of this special, and that's on Christmas Day, a Tesla. All right, so this is the chart here. So what happens after these crashes, something that happens almost every single time when we're in a macro trend. So we just spent the first part of the video looking for a macro trend in Bitcoin. And like I've looked at many times before, I feel like the macro trend is still intact. Well, it definitely is still intact. And I feel like we're going to go for a quieter period for a period of time, days, weeks. I don't know. I don't know, but I don't think we're going to get a V-shaped recovery from this point. So that's the main thing I need to look at here. Do I need to get into something really quick, or do I have time? So for me, macro is up and I have time. That's where I want to be. I want to be in a bull market and not freaking out that I need to jump into something straight away because there's no more time left in the market. Last chance, urgent, all this sort of nonsense, right? So I think we have time now. So I'm going to come across to my daily chart. And at the moment, the 50% is at 48,900. And at the moment, Bitcoin is bouncing around, feeling very balanced at the $49,000 level. So that's just the major low that we saw in May to the current high of 69,000. And the halfway point across the middle is around 48,900. Call it 49 for easy use in the video. So we're just bouncing around that level now, which is nice. Now, I want to go a little bit closer in. So zooming in again, we've gone from the macro, the monthly, gone a little bit closer to the weekly, looked at those major lows. The trend is still intact. Yes, we can still be wrong. Is the Bitcoin low in? At the moment, it's showing definite signs that it is. We're just going into the micro space now, into the dailies. And some people love to go into the hourlies and minutes, but I don't think we need to do that just at the moment. So looking back on the history of Bitcoin, let's take the last 10 days as an example. We had the crash on the 4th. Yellow circle here on the 4th. You've seen that before. This is my change of behavior bar, sign of weakness. We get the dump, we get the big volume, we get a high close, which can be a sign, generally is a sign of professionals buying or smart money buying, because they buy up onto the close after such a big dump because they have to buy into weakness. Unlike small fish like us, we don't need to buy into weakness because we're not buying that much. You know, we're not buying hundreds of millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin. Maybe you're saying speak for yourself, but the point is they need to buy onto major weakness, and that's why you get a higher close. So now they're testing to see whether there is more supply, which means the market would have to fall, or if the supply has been scooped up on this major bar. So then they start to test the highs and test the lows against. And all of the supply that they bought up on this bar then gets used. Some gets put away to make further gains should the market go up from 40 grand to 80 grand. They'll start to sell it off on the way up, but they have to then use some of that supply to manipulate and test the market with. That's how it works. So then they'll start to sell off some of the supply at the top. They might start to buy a little bit more on the way up again just to see what's out there. So they're trying to figure out everyone's poker hand. And then they'll start to sell off, maybe dump some really hard to see where the supply comes in, or where the demand comes in, sorry. And at the moment, the demand is coming in at around the high 46,000s, call it 47,000. So this game could go on for days or weeks, which is what I was talking about a little bit earlier on, which is why I think we still have some time. So we have patience. Now, if you don't believe me, you can just look back at some of the recent examples. So we had the dump. There was a few days here before the market took off. The supply got dried up. They could see that it was getting dried up. The volume down here is waning, and then the next couple of days, you see the volume really pick up as it breaks through the previous highs. So that's on a smaller time frame there. I think we're going to have something more extended than what we saw in September, and it's already showing that at the moment. Let's look at the May drop. And the May drop, we had a big bar, 19th of May. So what I would probably call the physical or the true low, because the market actually did go a little bit lower, but this was the day that really put in that major low and that everyone was referring back to. And so then this movement went backwards and forwards for a couple of months before we started to take off again. But looking at in terms of the best time to buy cryptocurrency, if you had patience and you bought on that day and you weren't fearful of anything, you bought on the 19th, but you had patience throughout this period of 2 months, as the market started to rise, then you're in profit. But you don't have to do anything apart from buy on that day. So had we bought on the 4th of December, looking back at history, this is just one example, maybe we get something that turns out like this. We just have to be patient. We come into January, we come into February, and then maybe in March, we start to get a move up into newer, higher prices. Could be February, could be January. The point is, this sort of day is not a bad time to be buying cryptocurrency, even though the market didn't take off the very next day, the next week, or the next month. The market didn't really move too far from the prices here. So you can just draw a line across from the top and the bottom, and it basically was in this trading range for a couple of months. So let's take it back and look at times where it didn't actually work. And I would say that these are different times in the market, different cycles. So this is at the end of a major bull market. You can see here where the pink arrows are. I've got 3 defined times. End of a major bull market where things were getting really, really hot and heavy and crazy. Then you had some of these same bars that dumped the market, but they couldn't recover. You had another time here in July of 2019. Obviously, the final dump was in March of 2020. And then we could probably say that this was another one of those times. The market was really, really hot leading into April and May of 2021. And it had a dump on April 18th, which we looked at on the channel as a potential time that the market was not going to recover, and it didn't, and we got the dump from that point. There were many reasons there. We're looking at Wyckoff, we're looking at resistance levels of the high of that bar, and we just didn't get there. So we want to go back and look and compare the current time to other times in the market which were similar. So I want to come back to areas where the market had already fallen for a little bit and then had a capitulation. So this could be, we don't know yet, we'll know after the fact, but we need to play our hand now to have an attempt or a chance at getting lower prices for the move up. So that's why we're looking at, is the low in now? Well, it's a better looking low than what it was back here. That's for sure. And so we got this big capitulation at the moment. We're looking like we're trying to test some lows. We had extreme fear, even though the price was higher than on the dump day, and the market's trying to remain balanced at that 49K. So there's multiple things here which are adding up onto my list and also checking off my Wyckoff method. So going back to March 2020 as an example, big dump bar. The next day went lower. So you can see the low here, it was at around 3,800. But if you're buying on this way, on the way down here from 4,000 to wherever it broke out of, 7,500, within a few months, you're not really going to be too concerned from that point, because you look back and the price has never reached $7,500 again. So this is another extreme example, but we can continue to look back on the chart for more examples. So the market can still trend down after the fact by a few days, but these bars tend to show up towards the end of a move. So let's track back again. When is the best time to be buying crypto? I'm basically trying to make the point that these days are the most fearful, but can be some of the best times to be buying crypto. This, as we looked at, is a different period in the market. This is a bear market, so you can see that they're not working out. That's where you have to understand that maybe the timing is out. Maybe the cycle is over. But we're looking at our major macro view, as we've looked at here, and we're seeing that the market is still up. So at the moment, we have to play with the fact that we're still in a bull market. We're not in a bear yet, so we're still looking at good times to be buying. We look back to 2017, and plenty of opportunities here. The market dumps. This is at the end of the bear market, goes sideways and then back up. Again, we peaked, we came back down, we had a few capitulations, sideways and then back up. Capitulation, sideways and then back up. Capitulation, sideways and then back up. And so 2017 had a lot more of these bars and it was a lot more methodical, but this happens in many markets. Across cryptocurrencies, across stocks, whatever has a chart, you see these capitulation bars. And the reason for this, as Wyckoff points out, is that it's charting human emotion. And these tend to happen towards the end of the cycle or the end of the downtrend. You get the capitulation, just like you get the up thrusts when the market is going up. You get that final push into the highs you can see the weakness start to form, and then the market capitulates from that point. So you can see you had one here sideways, had a second one sideways, and then the market recovers again and heads back up. The thing to note is the patience. And this is going to be your key. This is going to be the piece of the puzzle that is going to set you apart. The patience is going to set you apart from the next person who is looking for quick gains within 15 minutes, 15 days, whatever it may be. So if you can start to master this, master your Wyckoff, master your macro trends, and also look at your fear and greed, you'll start to get a feel for when there are good times to be buying, no matter if the market continues to trend down for days, weeks, potentially even months. Generally speaking, in an uptrending market long term, we see that these areas have been some of the better times to be buying. So if you want to throw this into a dollar cost averaging plan, I wouldn't be obliged to say that it's not a bad idea. Thanks once again. Like the video, subscribe, check us out on Patreon where we go through this on a weekly basis. Link to that is down below. And of course, Swyftx as well. Appreciate your time. I'll see you at the next video. Until then, have more fun to get more done.